The streets are on fire with the leaked final moments of Lil Jeff, the Bloodhound's most feared enforcer. Dubbed the Pistol Professor, Jeff didn't just rap about the game, he lived it to the fullest, leaving behind a trail of destruction and a name that still echoes through the city.
Got shot and killed. He got shot 12 times, and you actually talked about this.
19.
Bloodhound Q50 was there when Bloodhound Lil Jeff got killed.
He was, yeah.
Right.
From alleged high-profile hits to cutthroat lyrics, he was a walking, breathing embodiment of the violent world he glorified, taking after his idol, King Von. But now, with the footage of his final stand making rounds, the world is getting an uncensored, unfiltered look at the man behind the legend. Lil Jeff and his right-hand man, Q50, were the backbone of the Bloodhound Gang, a duo feared for their lyrics, and even more for what they did off the mic. Jeff's raps weren't just entertainment, they were play-by-plays of real-life chaos.
He spat about hopping out of cars, chasing down ops, and turning neighborhoods into battlefields. And on June 8th, he wasn't just rapping, he was living out one of his own verses, until everything went south. Now, explosive surveillance footage from that day has surfaced, showing Jeff, Q50, and another shooter rolling up to South Rhodes Avenue, a block Jeff had name-dropped countless times in his tracks. But this time, the streets weren't just lyrics, they were about to become his final chapter.
The clip kicks off with Lil Jeff jumping out of the car, gun in hand, moving like a man on a mission. The target? A dude in bright yellow shorts, later ID'd as Man Man. Without hesitation, Jeff lets off shots, forcing Man Man to dive for cover behind a car. But he doesn't stop there. Man Man sprints up a porch, scrambling for safety inside a house. But Jeff? He's right on his heels, firing like he's in his own music video. But this is where everything goes left. Fast.
Just as Jeff thinks he's got Man Man cornered, boom, gunfire erupts from inside the house. Someone inside wasn't just hiding, they were waiting. Jeff, caught completely off guard, takes a hit and stumbles backward, crashing at the bottom of the porch. And then they let loose. Reports say Jeff was hit 19 times, his body riddled with bullets as an entire magazine was emptied into him while he lay there, defenseless. It was a brutal execution, the kind of scene straight out of the lyrics he once rapped about.
Meanwhile, Q50 and the other shooter were still in the thick of it, desperately trying to hold their ground. The footage shows Q50 slipping and falling mid-shootout, twisting his ankle in the chaos. But even injured and limping, he wasn't backing down. He kept firing, even taking shots at a passing car. Why? Some claim the driver was connected to Man Man, but the truth? That might never come out. What's clear is that Q50 was outnumbered, outgunned, and trapped in a war he wasn't winning. The moment the driver realized Jeff was done for, he wasted no time. He peeled off, gone without a second thought. But here's where things take a wild turn. Q50 and the other shooter?
They doubled back. In a move straight out of a movie, they spun the block, dodging bullets just to grab Jeff's lifeless body and rush him to the hospital. Yeah, you heard that right. They risked their own lives in the middle of a gunfight, all for a man who had already taken his last shot at survival. But it was too late.
Q50 was the one who had to watch Jeff take his final breath on the way to the ER. The streets, they don't stop for nobody, not even for Lil Jeff. By June 9th, the news exploded. Twitter, on fire. Reddit, flooded with threads dissecting every angle. Police scanners, going crazy with reports of retaliation brewing. But for Jeff's crew and family, this wasn't just another headline. This was personal. His father took to Facebook, dropping throwback pics of his son with a caption that shook the internet. World. But he didn't stop there. He fired back at the streets, posting, "Let it be known y'all didn't get him. He came trying to get y'all. And what happened, happened. But the saga continues. Clear the streets." Some called him out for glorifying the life that took his son. But others, they saw the pain of a father mourning the brutal end of a son raised by the streets that made him a legend. Then there's Q50, Jeff's cousin, right-hand man, and the last person to see him alive. But crying, that wasn't his way. Instead, he took to social media with a chilling message, calling Jeff his brother and twin before making a vow. he was going to do exactly what Jeff had told him to do. Translation? Revenge was coming. And if you know Q50, you know one thing: he doesn't make empty threats.
The streets don't listen until it's too late. After Lil Jeff's death, Q50 made it crystal clear the Bloodhounds weren't about to let this slide. He swore to finish what Jeff started, and anyone familiar with Q50 knew he meant every word. But here's where things got even darker. Trap City, the crew allegedly responsible for Jeff's death.
They didn't back down. Instead of laying low, they doubled down on the disrespect, taking shots at Jeff and Q50 in the most brutal ways imaginable, publicly mocking them, turning the tragedy into a game of street warfare. And with tensions rising, it was only a matter of time before things exploded. In the days after Lil Jeff's death, Trap City didn't just celebrate. They clowned him and his entire crew in the most disrespectful way possible. Videos started popping up all over social media, mocking Jeff's last moments, reenacting the shooting like it was some kind of joke. In one viral clip, a Trap City member collapses to the ground, yelling, I'm hit," while his crew laughs in the background. And if that wasn't enough, another video showed them chanting Trap City K, a direct and bold insult aimed at Jeff and the Bloodhounds. The level of disrespect was off the charts. Trap City didn't stop at videos. Instagram became a battlefield. They flooded Jeff's mentions with taunts, memes, and non-stop trolling, making sure everyone knew they weren't afraid of the Bloodhounds.
And as the streets kept watching, a new name started buzzing everywhere. The man who took down Lil Jeff was about to become a legend in Trap City. After Jeff's death, the name on everyone's lips was Trap City Rob, also known as iTrapRob.
According to Chiacology, a Reddit user claiming to have cracked the case, Rob was the one who pulled the trigger that ended Lil Jeff's reign. Now, Trap City was calling him a hero. And with the way things were heating up, one thing was clear: this war was far from over.
Rob, Trap City's most talked about name, was the one who allegedly fired the fatal shots that took down Lil Jeff. Reports say he had already been arrested multiple times at the very house where the shooting happened. And after Jeff's death, the internet wasted no time pointing fingers as posts flooded social media naming him as the shooter. A news report even confirmed that police were actively looking for the gunman.
But on June 16th, a bombshell dropped. Reddit users on Chiacology appeared to ID Rob in a new post. The evidence? A photo of Rob rocking a shirt that blatantly trolled Jeff's death. It was a bold move, almost like he was daring the Bloodhounds to respond. But despite all the speculation, Rob was arrested and then released without facing any charges for Jeff's murder. And just like that, the streets went crazy. The Bloodhounds weren't just mad, they were out for blood. How did the man everyone was calling the shooter get to walk free? Why wasn't anyone paying for Jeff's death? What started as a street war had now turned into something bigger, unfinished business. If you know Chicago's streets, you know the name, Bloodhounds. This isn't just some random gang. This is a crew that's been holding it down for over a decade. Thanks to rappers like Lil Jeff, Q50, and Vert, the Bloodhounds cemented their name in the drill scene, making them one of the most feared and recognized sets in the game. But with Jeff gone and the shooter walking free, one thing was clear: this war was far from over. Let's be real, this wasn't some overnight come-up. The Bloodhounds have been deep in the trenches since the early days of drill, and their rise to fame?
Nothing short of ruthless. The Bloodhounds were born during the first wave of drill, back in the early to mid 2010s, when Chicago's underground rap was changing the game. But don't get it twisted, this isn't just one gang. The Bloodhounds are more of a coalition, a heavyweight clique made up of 4 dominant sets in Chicago's Chatham and Woodlawn neighborhoods.
While all 4 sets ride under the Bloodhound banner, the heart of the crew? Drill City. That's why the Bloodhounds claim Drill City's territory as their own. And if you know Chicago, you know exactly what that means. The Bloodhounds' turf runs from Ellis Avenue to Cottage Grove, one of the most dangerous stretches in the city. Out here, the streets don't sleep. Shootings, fights, and high-speed police chases are just another day in the life. And if you need proof, look no further than Lil Jeff and Q50's music video for Should've Saw It, shot right in the heart of the same block where they made their name and where the war still rages on. In Lil Jeff and Q50's world, the streets weren't just home, they were theirs to run. In their minds, they owned the block, and for a while, no one dared to question it. But then, everything changed. A decade-long peace between the Bloodhounds and Trap City, once thought to be unbreakable, came crashing down. For years, the Bloodhounds and Trap City were allies, running together under the Bloodhound 0679 umbrella. This wasn't just some loose affiliation, it was a strong coalition. Together, these sets held it down, focused on bigger threats, and for a time, there was no serious beef between them. They were locked in. But in the streets, respect is everything. And sometimes, it only takes one small spark to burn everything to the ground.
Back in 2023, members of Drill City allegedly snatched a chain from a Trap City affiliate, and that single act turned former allies into bitter enemies. But this wasn't just any chain. It was engraved with 67 Stalkin', a symbol of Trap City's legacy and pride. To outsiders, it might seem like just jewelry, but in the drill world, that's like stealing a king's crown.
Trap City wasn't about to take the disrespect lying down. That chain? It was the last straw. They cut all ties with the Bloodhound Alliance, and just like that, the streets split in two. Most sets stood behind Drill City, leaving Trap City outnumbered, outgunned, and furious. The tension? Heavy. And it wasn't long before the first shots were fired. The real turning point came on March 16th, 2023, the day Z Money, aka Z Nelson, Lil Jeff's cousin, and a key Bloodhound figure, was gunned down in cold blood. Z Money was posted in his ride on 79th and Kimball, just waiting for his homie to finish up at the dry cleaners. It should have been just another day, but out of nowhere, a car pulled up, guns out, no warning. Z Money tried to peel off, but it was too late. The shooters unloaded, hitting him a brutal 29 times before speeding off. His boy fired back, but by then, the damage was done. Z Money was gone. The streets erupted with whispers. Who did it? Some claimed Z Money's own people, his old crew from Trap City, set him up. Others said it was over a girl, or maybe that stolen chain.
One thing was certain, the Bloodhounds weren't letting this slide. Jeff and Q50 tatted Z Money's name on their eyelids and Z's on their trigger fingers, a permanent promise that Trap City was going to pay. And if you knew Lil Jeff, you knew he wasn't the type to let a hit go unanswered. By June 2023, Lil Jeff was done waiting. It was time for payback, and his first major move, a direct hit on Trap City. The target?
Leal, real name Jaleel Goins, a well-known Trap City member. Leal wasn't on the block or in a known hotspot. He was posted up in an Uber, cruising through Little Italy, one of Chicago's most upscale and gentrified neighborhoods. This area? Far from the trenches. It's a spot known for trendy restaurants, coffee shops, and almost no crime. But on this night,
the streets came knocking. Leal was chilling in the back seat when a gunman walked up on foot and let it rip. Witnesses say more than 20 shots rang out, meaning the shooter wasn't holding back. They came armed and ready with a high-capacity weapon, and the aim, deadly. The bullets tore through the rear passenger window, hitting Leal multiple times before he could react.
The Uber driver, Robert Smith, didn't panic. He stepped on the gas, rushing to get Leal to the hospital, but the damage was already done. By the time they reached the ER, Leal was gone. For Smith, it was a nightmare he'd never forget. He later shared how Leal likely passed away during the short drive, a chilling reminder of just how fast the streets take lives. And for the Bloodhounds, this wasn't just a hit, this was a message. Leal's murder sent shockwaves through the city, not just because of how bold the hit was, but because of who he was. Leal wasn't just another name in the streets. He was connected to Project Hood, a well-known Chicago organization fighting to end violence.
Pastor Corey Brooks, the founder of Project Hood, confirmed that Leal was the son of one of their employees. The organization released a heartfelt statement, mourning the loss of yet another young life to Chicago's deadly cycle of violence. We are deeply saddened by the loss of Jaleel Goins, a young man who was connected to our organization through his family.
This senseless violence has to stop. Pastor Corey Brooks. But despite how high-profile the case was, no arrests were made. The shooter vanished into the night. No leads, no suspects, just a community left searching for answers. While the city mourned, Lil Jeff wasted no time making his stance clear. On June 26, 2023, just a day after Layal's death, Jeff, along with JB Bin Laden and Q50, dropped their remix to Lil Yachty's Coffin. This wasn't just a random release, the timing was a statement. The music video, filmed before Layal's death, opens with Q50 playing an old clip of Z Money. It was no coincidence. The Bloodhounds wanted Trap City to know they weren't just keeping score, they were sending a message. And the streets, they were listening. The Bloodhounds weren't just making music, they were sending messages. Their remix to Lil Yachty's Coffin wasn't just about Z Money's death, it was a war cry. Every verse dripped with violence and retribution, but one bar stood out above the rest. Catch him in a fishbowl, now he's swimming with the fishes. In the trenches, a fishbowl is a car with no tint, basically a death trap. And when Lil Jeff dropped that line, the message was loud and clear. Layal got caught in an Uber, clear windows, no escape. And Jeff wanted the ops to know that wasn't by accident. This wasn't just rap, this was warfare. Jeff's name rings louder than ever. With each move, Jeff's reputation as a fearless, ruthless stepper only grew stronger. The city was talking.
The Bloodhounds weren't playing with Trap City, and the message was clear. Nobody was safe. But Jeff, he wasn't done. August 31st, 2023, another Bloodhound hit. Just 2 months later, the Bloodhounds slid again. This time, the target was Glendale, an alleged Trap City member. Glendale was posted up at a Clark gas station on 67th, and Eberhardt probably thinking it was just another night.
But then, out of nowhere, the shooters pulled up and let it rip. Glendale took multiple shots, his body riddled with bullets. But this time, he barely made it out alive. And with that, the war between the Bloodhounds and Trap City was just getting started. That same night, Chicago was on fire. In Woodlawn, 4 people got shot, including a 4-year-old child. A chilling reminder that in this war, no one was safe. Meanwhile, Glenn survived the ambush, and by the next day, he was back online. Glenn didn't just thank people for checking in, he made sure to send a message. And let's be real, it was aimed straight at the Bloodhounds and Drill City. This war was far from over. By January 2024, the streets plunged even deeper into chaos.
This time, the targets were Monterio, Monty Drench Williams, and Robert Lil Rob Boston, 2 brothers from Nitty Block. This wasn't some sloppy drive-by, this was an execution. The shooters didn't rush it, they waited for the perfect moment, then let it rain. By the time the dust settled, Monty and Lil Rob were gone. These weren't just random names, they were big figures in their set, and their deaths shook the entire hood.
Jeff? He wasn't about to stay quiet. He hit social media with subliminals, dropping cryptic taunts aimed directly at Trap City and Nitty Block. If you knew, you knew. And if anyone still wasn't sure where Jeff stood, his music made it crystal clear. Tracks like Double Trouble and Street Confessions had fans breaking down every bar, trying to connect the dots between the lyrics and real-life bodies. This wasn't just rap, this was a scoreboard. But the streets don't forget. And no matter how deep his rep ran, Lil Jeff wasn't untouchable. Trap City wasn't about to let Jeff keep racking up points without consequence. So, in a cold-blooded move, they went after someone close to him, Lil Squirrel.
The message was clear. Anybody standing next to Jeff could get it. For all the savage talk, all the war-ready anthems, at the end of the day, Jeff was still human. And Lil Squirrel's death shook him. He took to social media, venting his pain, calling Squirrel innocent, saying he wasn't even in the streets like that. But in a war like this, none of that mattered.
It didn't matter if you banged or not. If your name was tied to the wrong side, you were a target. And by now, Jeff understood that better than anybody. For once, the internet saw something different. Not the fearless stepper, not the ruthless shooter, but a young man drowning in loss. Even he wasn't immune to the pain that came with this life. But if Trap City thought this was going to break him, they were dead wrong. Lil Squirrel's death didn't just break Jeff, it ignited something in him. The streets of Chicago became even deadlier as the cycle of violence kept spinning. When it comes to Lil Jeff, the streets got a million stories. Some say he was a real-life demon, catching bodies with no hesitation.
Others claim he was just another rapper who got too deep in the trenches. But one thing isn't up for debate. Jeff wasn't just rapping about this life, he was living it. By 2024, he was fully active, riding through Chicago, ready to step on anybody who dared to cross him.
Jeff's story didn't start with drill music. It started on the far south side of Chicago, where he was just a skinny 12-year-old kid with dreams of hooping. But the streets had other plans. Whispers of Jeff's involvement in murders go way back to September 2014, a time when he was just 12 years old. The alleged first victim, an 18-year-old named Molly Ma, real name Kamal Burton, reportedly affiliated with the H. Ray mob. The hit went down in the old Goo Gardens community, a spot known for its history of bloodshed. Did Jeff really have a hand in it? Some swear he did, but the truth? Unclear. What's certain is that by the time he was grown, the streets weren't just a part of his life. They were his whole identity. And in this game, there were only two ways out.
At the time of Molly Ma's murder, Jeff was just a kid, more focused on basketball than anything else. Even his older brother, Jay Boogie, was only 16, though he always looked older than his age. According to a CPD spokesperson, Molly was approached by two men who opened fire, making it highly unlikely that a 12-year-old Jeff was one of them.
But even if Jeff wasn't pulling triggers at 12, his environment was already molding him into the person he would become. In an interview with DJU, Jeff opened up about his upbringing, and it was anything but ordinary. His father wasn't present, allegedly standing on business with the 068C block. Meanwhile, his older brother Jay Boogie was already fully active in the streets. Jeff admitted, "I've been seeing this my whole life. I got an older brother, so this ain't nothing new for real." There were two key moments that shaped Jeff's mindset and pushed him deeper into the streets. Witnessing the murder of Kenny Mack, the day his family's house got shot up. In Jeff's own words, "I remember it like it was yesterday." The harsh realities of Chicago's South Side mixed with Jeff's personal experiences turned him into exactly what the streets demanded. By the time he hit 18, Jeff wasn't just dabbling in gang life, he was all the way in. In the same DJU interview, Jeff admitted, "Once I jumped in, there was no jumping out. There was no turning back. He was fully immersed, and the Bloodhounds welcomed him with open arms." Jeff didn't just rep the Bloodhounds, he became a key figure in the set. Known for its deep street ties and cutthroat reputation, the Bloodhounds weren't just a crew, they were a movement, and Jeff was one of its rising stars. What's even more shocking, his own mother didn't discourage the lifestyle, she encouraged it. In a now viral Instagram story, she publicly cheered on her son, writing, "Go ahead, son." The message was clear. Jeff wasn't just living for the streets, he had his family's approval to do it. And with that kind of backing, there was no stopping him. His name wasn't just known, it rang bells in the streets. His own mother even bragged about it, saying, "Is that my boy?" But what really shook people was how proud she was of him for sliding on kids he used to share a bed with as a child. When he dropped his first track, The Bloody Family, he wasn't just another drill rapper, he was a force of nature, a walking nightmare for anyone who dared to cross him or his set. Most artists rap about violence, but Jeff, he lived it. And when it came to sliding on his enemies, Jeff didn't play games. They called him the Pistol Professor. Because for him, class was always in session. When it comes to Jeff's alleged victims, the list is long, controversial, and constantly debated. But one thing's for sure, whether legend or truth, his name is forever tied to the streets.
Some rumors were more credible than others, but one thing stayed the same. Jeff's name was always in the mix. No matter who got dropped, people were quick to speculate. One of the less talked about names tied to Jeff is Lil Gutta, real name Ronnie L. Sear Jr. Gutta was an alleged member of the hit squad, and in 2021, he was gunned down on the 700 block of 79th Street.
That spot? Not just any block. It was just a short walk from 79th in Maryland, a location frequently shouted out in Bloodhound tracks and featured in their music videos. But when it comes to hard evidence linking Jeff to the hit, there isn't much. Another name often tied to Jeff is Black. Real name Roger Lewis, a 33-year-old OG from the Evans mob. Black was killed in a drive-by in March 2022. But here's the problem with that theory. His alleged killer was arrested and charged the following month. Meaning, if the streets were right about who pulled the trigger, Jeff wasn't involved. Still, whether fact or fiction, Jeff's name stayed attached to every major body that dropped, a testament to the fear and reputation he carried in the streets. In 2022, Jeff took a major loss, one that pushed him deeper into the streets. His close homie, Lawston, better known as JMO, was taken out. And word on the streets, JMO was tied to the 066/79 Alliance. And when he got dropped, Jeff made one thing clear. That wasn't going unanswered. Some say this was the moment that changed him forever. His first real body, it might have been revenge for JMO.
The Bloodhounds have been dropping hints about JMO's murder in their tracks. They've suggested he was caught slipping outside a corner store or a gas station, but nobody's confirming details. One thing's for sure, after JMO's death, Jeff wasn't just a rapper anymore. He was a problem. Jeff wasn't just putting in work in the city. Rumors say he was catching bodies in Milwaukee too. A photo surfaced of him posted up with Milwaukee gang members, looking like something straight out of a music video. The pic even featured big names from the Milwaukee scene, including Ghost, 5'6" Super Throat, FaZe, Cracks. Jeff wasn't just making Chicago headlines anymore. His name was buzzing in other cities too. And at this point, the streets knew. Wherever Jeff went, bodies followed.
The Bloodhounds weren't just running Chicago. They had Milwaukee in their sights too. Even J.B. Bin Laden rapped about blood for hire, implying that Milwaukee crews were selling hits like a business. Jeff himself rapped, "I'm in Milwaukee like the Bucks." Meanwhile, in a leaked track, Q50 claimed he had bodies in multiple states, including Milwaukee. But let's be real, there's no hard evidence backing any of these claims.
One of the strongest rumors linking Jeff to a hit, the murder of Lil Pooh, real name Pierre Bouza Jr. Lil Pooh was allegedly with Flipside, and possibly even Trap City. On April 9th, 2023, just weeks after Z-Money was killed, Pooh was found laid out on the front lawn of his house in Sauk Village, riddled with bullets.
Police never solved the case, but Jeff, he wasn't exactly quiet about it. He damn near confessed on social media and in an unreleased track. In the song In Your Home, Jeff rapped about Pooh dissing Z-Money, someone getting left in the grass outside their house. It was almost a bar-for-bar breakdown of Pooh's crime scene. Later, the song made it onto Jeff's posthumous album, Stepping in Blood, adding fuel to the speculation.
Here's where things get even wilder. After Jeff's death, one of Pooh's own homies from Flipside actually paid respects to Jeff. A rival crew, Hadway, claimed they were the ones who got Pooh out the way. Pooh's brother wasted no time celebrating when Jeff got killed. In the streets, loyalty shifts fast. And in this war, nobody was safe, dead or alive. Pooh's brother didn't hold back. He clowned the fact that the same dudes who dissed his bro ended up meeting the same fate.
In the streets, karma moves fast, and nobody is untouchable. Most people want to leave behind a different kind of legacy. But Jeff, he didn't. He didn't just want to be a rapper. He wanted to be feared, to be remembered as a legend in the trenches. And to do that, he modeled himself after one of the most infamous figures in drill history, King Von. Born Davin Daquan Bennett on August 9, 1994, King Von wasn't just a name, he was one of the most feared figures to ever come out of Chicago's South Side. Like Jeff, Von wasn't just known for music, he was known for the bodies attached to his name, a young man who rose to fame not just because of his bars, but because of his reputation as a ruthless killer. Von's name became synonymous with violence after a series of high-profile incidents that cemented his status. One of the first major events? October 14, 2012. Vaughn was allegedly behind the murder of Medell McCambry, shooting him while he and his cousin were walking to meet a girl. Model's cousin survived, but the shooting put Vaughn's name on the map as a dangerous figure on the South Side. Less than a month later, on October 29, 2012, Vaughn was suspected of killing Derek P5 Johnson right outside his home. These hits were just the beginning, and Jeff was watching, taking notes. He didn't just admire Vaughn's career, he wanted to follow the same path. And in the end, he did. P5 was a well-known figure in the streets, and his murder shook the entire community. But the violence didn't stop there.
In 2014, King Von was allegedly behind the murder of Jakira Barnes, a 17-year-old girl with a feared reputation in the trenches. Barnes was suspected of being involved in multiple murders of O-Block members, making her one of the most dangerous females in the drill scene. But on that day, the streets caught up to her. She was shot multiple times in Woodlawn, her life ending the same way she lived it, in the middle of a war zone. Both Vaughn and Jeff followed the same path. Both were more than rappers. They were street figures whose reputations went beyond music. And just like Vaughn's story ended in blood, so did Jeff's. On November 6, 2020, King Von was gunned down in Atlanta, caught up in a deadly altercation outside a nightclub. Jeff, on the other hand, he embraced the chaos, the violence, and the danger. He lived and died by it. Is this really the legacy?
Most people want to be remembered for something more than a list of bodies and an endless war. But Jeff wasn't one of them. He chose this life, embraced it, and in the end, it consumed him. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like this video to support the channel. Drop a comment below. What do you think about Jeff's story? Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Click the video on your screen now for more deep dives into the world of hip-hop and the streets. See you in the next video.